Now, before you're gathering evidence, you need to consider the principles of assessment. So that's these ones here in the green on the left-hand side. So validity, once again, are we meeting the requirements of the unit of competency? Now, if you aren't a qualified assessor, if you're just gathering evidence and you're contributing to the assessment, it is up to the supervising assessor to ensure that fact for you. Okay, so the validity should all be taken care of by the assessor who is qualified. Okay, reliability. So this is where we're making sure that your judgments, when you're going to mark them as satisfactory or not satisfactory to the benchmarks, that you can make a consistent judgment about that. So one thing you can look closely at is the benchmark. So with Evoke, say with our questionnaires, we've got the red text for the, the assessor guidelines and the satisfactory responses. So you need to make sure in advance, before you're working with a candidate, that you fully understand those benchmarks and what's expected, what a satisfactory response would look like, what it actually is, and have a conversation with the supervising assessor before that happens. Also, look, this applies equally if you are a qualified assessor and you aren't working under a supervising assessor. You need to make sure that your instruments, your questionnaires, your observation checklists, for example, that they have benchmarks, assessor guidelines that are very clear. So at Evoke, we colour code them in red text. Not just that you know that that's where the benchmarks are in red text, but you have read through those benchmarks and you understand very clearly what's expected. And if you're not certain, you would check back with the supervising assessor or the RTO or the training package resource kit provider who's provided those instruments for you. So flexibility, people that are gathering assessment or qualified assessors are going to look to make sure that there was considerations for reasonable adjustment. It is the qualified assessor's role to have provided those reasonable adjustments, not somebody who's not qualified. So you also need to make sure, though, if you're gathering evidence, that those adjustments maintain the integrity of the benchmarks that you're looking at. So don't forget, on that orange side, when we're looking at authenticity here, we need to make sure it's the candidate's own work, and the person gathering the evidence can make sure of that. So, for example, with our case study, John, if he had a translator from the workplace, we need to be making sure that it's John's responses that we're recording down, not the translator assisting him with the translator's own thoughts. So certainly when it comes to fairness, under the principles of assessment, anyone gathering evidence, even if they're not qualified, really has to be looking at that fairness factor and that reliability factor to make sure that they understand the benchmarks.